Welcome back, Victory Seekers. You're tuning into another philosophically motivating episode of Onward with Onrie. I'm your host, Onrie Kompan, and this week we're going to discuss the importance of tackling your creative endeavors at your own pace and the way you envision it. When I first started working on YI SOON SHIN way back in 2006, I knew from the get-go that I wanted my series to stand out in ways that other comics did not. I sure knew how to pick them because YI SOON SHIN stuck out like a sore thumb. And after years of investing time, money, and research into the book, I had something that no publisher wanted at the time. Granted, I released the book in a really bad market and time, but the reality is that there is never a perfect time to release anything, and that's the point of my lesson today. You see, when I produced the first issue of YI SOON SHIN, it was at the height of an economical recession. Getting a loan at the time was impossible, and I was told by everyone I trusted not to produce the book. So I sat around and waited for 3 months while my production team remained on standby. Then one morning I woke up and decided that I was done buying into the fear of everyone else around me. No one was going to tell me what I could or couldn't do. I had the money, and so I just did it. Once I started doing things my way, it became a lot easier for me to move past all the naysayers who said that my book wouldn't sell and that I was releasing a comic at a bad time. In truth, there is never a good time to release a new comic book series. You have to bite the bullet, and if you aren't ready to do that, then you're not doing it the way you should be doing it. So what's the way you should do it? Well, your way, of course. Look, YI SOON SHIN is not a mainstream comic, and that was done intentionally. I never planned on making this a comic that would come out on a monthly basis. My books come out when they're ready, and never before. I intentionally take my time because I want my comics to have emotional content. You need to find the right platform for whatever it is you're doing, even if it doesn't exist yet, and then build it out exactly as you see it. Forget what everyone tries to tell you. There is no formula for this that applies to every project. Like Jack Kirby himself said, do it your way. There is a saying that you should never be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. There is truth to that, but when you're creating, it is essential that you remain in your comfort zone. You need to be focused and alert in order to put out something that you can be proud of. And you're not going to be an expert, especially at first. In fact, the better you get, the more you'll realize you have yet to learn. The things I've learned since releasing my first comic would make your head spin. Even though I'm not as prolific as my contemporaries, I have learned things that allow me to excel in ways that work for me and only me. The same applies to you. There is no design to the comics industry. There is no corporate ladder that you need to climb. The only metaphorical ladder you're climbing is the one that you designed for yourself. You're the one who creates all the rungs. Now, there are consequences to doing things your way, and you may not like them, but conforming for the sake of it is not how we actually grow. One has to have the desire to make the change in order to advance. For example, let's say you're doing things your way, but your ultimate goal is to work for a company like Marvel or DC, and they don't like your style of art or your writing. At this point, you have to decide whether you want to keep doing things your way or learn how to do things their way. Either choice you make is something you have to live with, and the last thing you want is to have any sort of regret. If you make a comic that isn't up to another publisher's standards, it's ultimately up to you to decide how to proceed. Let's say you create a new comic and you love the way it turned out, but said publisher tells you that it's not professional enough. Try not to walk away disappointed. Instead, ask why. Listen and see what you can learn from their critique, even if what you're hearing doesn't please you. If the publisher gives you feedback, take it at face value. That doesn't mean you have to implement what they are suggesting if you don't agree with it. Publishers may give off the front that they are all-knowing, but it's just a front. They may know what works for them, but they don't know what works for you. Remember the iron skin philosophy. The best defense is strategy. Learn to accept other forms of thinking that you may not necessarily agree with, and never ever get emotional about it, even though your work will be directly attacked. There are plenty of creators out there who are happy doing things their way. They don't care if Marvel or DC doesn't deem them worthy. As long as they have their creative output, they are happy. You may not make as much money or any money at first, and that's okay. There is no time limit as to how long it can take for you to become self-sufficient. Everyone has their own business model, but there is one universal fact. Making a career in comics requires you to be committed and patient. You're going to have to go through years of practice, years of trials and tribulations in order to see a return on your investment. If you're going to work in comics, do it for the comics. Don't make comics for the sake of trying to make a quick buck or simply to score a movie deal. If you're in it, be in it for the long haul. Most importantly, take your time. Always look for ways to learn and grow, and enjoy studying various techniques because that's how you reach new heights. Learn under conditions that make sense to you, and don't be pressured into doing things the way someone else would do it. Personally, if someone is being too abrasive or impatient with me, I find it harder to understand what it is they're trying to teach. I learn the most from people who actually want to mentor me. There is no direct course to learning to do things your way other than to build confidence in yourself and the imperishable belief that if you put your mind to it, you can succeed. It is a long journey that will require time and patience. All right, my friends, that wraps up this week's episode. Be sure to tune in next week for another motivational lesson. Until then, onward to victory.